All right, students, we're going to talk a little bit about sheet music. I'm no expert. Let's see what we can do though. So in this project, you need to go from sheet music, like what you see on the left, to creating a pseudocode, which is kind of like figuring it out on your own how you're going to do the code before you do the final thing, the Arduino code at the end. Okay, so today we're going to start with the sheet music in the very beginning. So in every assignment, you're going to have a key, like what you see on the right. And you see the lowest note is C4 and the highest note is G5. And you can use that to decode things like what you see on the left. So in the top left, that's this one here, I know that that is an F4. I know that because according to my key, that first empty space between the lines is an F4. This next one, which is an empty space, is an A4. Now there's a little trick. The empty spaces, you can remember spell face, F-A-C-E, whereas the lines, I think it's every good boy deserves fudge, if you remember the lines. But you can also just remember that they go in ABC order. So it's C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. I don't know. Maybe that'll help you. Anyways, this last one here, according to my key, is a D5. Or you could also just remember that every good boy deserves the fourth line, so deserves fudge, D5. All right? Let's do a few more. This one on the bottom here is just before the E. So what letter is before E? It's D. That's a D4. Okay. Now, if you're wondering what these numbers are, that's what's called the octave. So a C4 and a C5 are just lower or higher versions of each other. It's important to know the octave whenever you're coding your song later. Every good boy, that's a B4. Every good boy deserves, okay, that's a D5. Anyways, the next thing you need to know is what we'll call note lengths. So in music, you have what's called a measure, and typically that has 4 beats. Now these solid colored things here, 1, 2, 3, 4, those are quarter notes. What you see on the top is a whole note, and then these are half notes. Now sometimes if you get into different genres of music, it doesn't always add up to 1 exactly, or it doesn't always divide into 4, but we'll save that for another day. So it's a whole note, half note, quarter note, eighth note, 16th note. And you can get a 32nd note, which would have 3 flags, and you can have 4 flags. Yeah, you get the idea. Every time you divide by 2, you get another little flag. So we could translate this from the song Let It Go. This first note, if I use my key, I see is a C5. And I also know, based on the key on the bottom left, that it is a half note. That is a C5 half note. But actually, it's a dotted half note. I didn't get into that. So if it's dotted, that means it's 50% longer. So you just multiply that length by 1.5. Anyways, next it's an A4, which is an eighth note, and then a B4, which is an eighth note. We know that they're eighth notes because that thing that kind of spans the top of them kind of looks like a flag. Look at the key in the bottom left. Do you see where I circled it in blue? So you know that that's got to be an eighth note according to the key. Every project, you'll get these 2 keys on the bottom. So you'll never have to memorize this. So this next one here, we see it's a C. According to my key on the bottom right, it's a C5. And it is going to be a half note, because if you look at the little circle over here in the red, we know that an open note like that is a half note. So anyways, we could finish this out using our 2 keys, but I'm going to move on. The next thing to note is what's called a rest. So in the middle here we have notes, and on the right side we have rests. Those are just times where there's no music playing at all. So in Arduino, you would just have a delay. So you'd have a delay for a quarter note if you see this in the middle. And you see whole, half, quarter, eighth, and 16th delays here. And if you look in the sheet music, there's a little quarter note delay right here. So in between these notes, you'd have to have just a time where there's no music playing at all. All right. I also see a quarter note delay here. So quarter note delay here. The next thing to note is sometimes you have what's called a flat note or a sharp note. Have you ever seen a piano? Those are the black keys. So far, everything we talked about so far is the white keys on the piano. But sometimes you'll deal with the black keys on the piano, including right here. So the G is just a regular G. It's not sharp and it's not flat. But what you see after is a B flat. And I know because if I trace it all the way to the left, I see a little flat sign. The next one is also an E flat because if you trace it all the way to the left, you'll see that it is a flat. Whereas the D, if you trace it all the way to the left, there is not a flat sign. So we know it's not a D flat. So we'll translate these notes. We're almost done. So this, according to my key, is an E5. And if I trace it to the left, it's a flat E5. So it's a flat E5, and it's also an eighth note. I can tell because it has a flag. So I had to use both of the keys on the right to do that. The next one, I can tell it is not flat because if I trace it to the left, it does not have a little lowercase b looking thing. I can tell that it is a C because I remember face, F-A-C-E, but also you could use your key on the top right. So that is a quarter note. If you use the key on the right, you can tell it's a quarter note. The last one here is a rest, and it is a dotted rest. It is a quarter dotted nest. So that just means that you would, in your Arduino, say it is a delay of a quarter, and you would say it's multiplied by 1.5 to make it 50% longer. Anyways, speaking of 50% longer, this has gone long. I have 2 games that you can play. In class, we did these for 10 minutes, and it'll help you practice all the things we've done so far. This might seem overwhelming, but you do not have to memorize any of this. You will always have a key like what you have on the right. I'm only teaching you how to read the keys. Good luck.